Hello and welcome to Second Chance Wrestling. I am your host, Second Chance Barlow, and today we're going to do a summary of the first of several wrestling stories. Now, you can call these storylines, or you can call them angles. Either way, this will be a series of videos telling the story of these made up wrestling characters, and this is all specifically for personal enjoyment as well as to entertain you for those of you who choose to watch these videos. Now, the first story that we're going to be telling is that of the Monsters Tournament, or the Tournament of Monsters. I like the second one better. The Tournament of Monsters. I actually wrote stuff down. So, just to read some of this stuff, this is based in a wrestling promotion called Global Wrestling Federation, which started as a small regional promotion in the Northeast and then eventually expanded to cover the whole United States and then the world. And the backstory is that this company has had ups and downs in terms of financial success and popularity, and now it is in a resurgence of popularity. And that's where our story is going to take place. This will be starting in the month of January, which there will be the Tournament of Monsters, which is an 8-man single elimination bracket tournament of undefeated wrestlers who are considered monsters, whether because of size or because of strength, maybe a combination of both, maybe size with athleticism, but either way, the one thing that all of these wrestlers will have in common is being undefeated. So now, we'll have to find out who will lose and who will win. Now, just to name, I'm going to read off the names of the individuals, and in later videos, I will talk about each of them and their backstories, how they got into the Global Wrestling Federation, and we'll go from there. The first is the Great Brahma, who is from India. Next is Khosrow Ahadi of Iran. Next is Hakuho Taro from Japan. Then Aguila Guerrero from Mexico. Ivan Volkov of Russia. Baba Simba of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Big Bad Brown from the United States of America. And Batar, the Mongolian giant from Mongolia. Now, I have a bracket system right here. I'm going to try and look at it through the camera just so I can read the darn thing. So just going to give you can see right there how the tournament progresses. The whole point of this tournament is to get the top babyface and the top heel together, which are respectively the Great Brahma and Baba Simba. Now, as to how each of these matches ends, I will go into detail in future videos, telling the story of each match. But the whole point is to get the Great Brahma, who is basically a modern-day version of the Great Gama, who was a legit wrestler from India during the turn of the century, of the 19th century, a man who was undefeated, a freakishly strong and well-conditioned athlete from India, wrestler from India. So the Great Brahma is just a modern-day version of that. And Baba Simba is an African giant. The idea about that is that he is from the DRC, which has the Watutu tribe, who can grow up to 7 feet tall. Now, the idea is that Baba Simba got access to a lot of food, and not only is tall, but also big and strong, a lot like Andre the Giant, or Omos from WWE, or the current Satnam Singh from in AEW. Now, the Great Brahma wins, but barely wins. And his knee gets hurt in the process. Not seriously, but that tells a story that'll happen later on, because the tournament starts in January. I'm reading my notes, and each quarterfinal match will happen on television. 2 matches per episode. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 quarterfinal matches. So that's each will happen on an episode of television. So there'll be 2 television episodes where those matches will happen. And then the 2 semifinal matches will happen a week before the first pay-per-view, called the Premium Gauntlet, which is basically a fantasy version of the Royal Rumble. just going through the notes again. And the two semifinal matches happen on the same show, the same television show. The Baba Simba will come out on top in his match, and then after the Great Brahma wins his match, which will be the final match of the show, Baba Simba will come out, and then they'll have a stare down, and then that's where we leave the show. Ooh, tension! I like that. And then eventually, the Great Brahma wins the tournament, like I said earlier, and his knee will be hurt in the process. Now, this is important because after the Premium Gauntlet, it's where the Premium Gauntlet will declare a new world champion. The new world champion will get his time in the spotlight. The Great Brahma will not interfere with the match or come out. Now, the following TV show, the Great Brahma and the new world champion will meet together for the first time. Then vignettes will play to hype up their match, which will be the main event match of the biggest pay-per-view in the world for pro wrestling, which will be called the biggest show on earth. Basically a fantasy version of WrestleMania. Now, the week before the BSE, both the world champion and the Great Brahma have a warm-up match. The Great Brahma gets his knee injured during the process. The same knee that was hurt during his match with Baba Simba. The knee has to be taped up, but the Great Brahma refuses to wear a knee brace out of pride. Kind of dumb because he's wearing tape, but okay. They have a world title match, and I'm just going to read or try to summarize what I've written right here. It is going to be the main event of the BSE, and both men will get elaborate entrances. The world champion, the current reigning world champion, will get a big entrance, and the Great Brahma will get a big entrance. The Great Brahma's entrance will be kind of like Jinder Mahal's entrance when he was the world champion for WWE, but a bit more tasteful, if you ask me. Just more tasteful entrance to show off the Great Brahma's Indian heritage and to make it look like a big spectacle. So, the whole story of the match is will the Great Brahma's knee hold out? That's the story. And the secondary story is, will the world champion go for the knee? Up to this point, the world champion and the Great Brahma are both babyfaces. During the course of the match, it's a competitive match. The Great Brahma's knee starts to give out halfway through the match, but he tries to tough it out. It's tempting for the world champion to go for the knee. Then 3/4 of the way through the match, the world champion goes for the knee, triggering an emotional reaction from the audience. Now I'm just going to read straight from the notes for this one, and this attacking of the knee will be the start of the world champion's heel turn. Think about when Bret Hart wrestled Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania and how Bret turned heel on Stone Cold. That's the hope behind this. Now, the Great Brahma will fight through the pain and finally hit his finisher on the third attempt. Meaning he goes for his finish 2 times, fails because his knee gives out. But then the third time he finally hits it. 1, 2, kick out. So what's going to happen after the kick out? The Great Brahma will go for his finish again, but the champ blocks it and attacks the knee again. The champion applies the figure 4 leg lock on the Great Brahma, and thus puts the Great Brahma in considerable pain. The Great Brahma is stuck in the middle of the ring in excruciating pain. He's nowhere near the ropes. He falls back trying to relieve pressure off his knee, but his shoulders touch the mat, and the referee counts. This happens 3 times, and then the Great Brahma eventually just looks like he's passing out. He looks like he's passing out. The referee first checks his arm because the Great Brahma will be leaning to the side like this, so he won't be able to call the pin or count the pin. He lifts the Brahma's arm once, twice. The Great Brahma holds up his hand high and holds it up proud, then muscles his way up and then beats his chest like Sting. This is the Sting spot with Ric Flair. You know where Ric Flair puts the figure four on Sting, then Sting comes up, yells at the Ric Flair and pounds his chest like King Kong. The Great Brahma will do this. And then the Great Brahma, after considerable effort, finally churns over to apply pressure onto the world champion's leg. And then the champ grabs the rope. The Great Brahma fires up and then hits his finishing sequence. And then he hits his finish to get the 3 count. That's the story. And then in later videos I'm going to go into further detail into each individual match, both from the tournament. I'll be telling the story of each match in the tournament, and then and then go into detail with the match for the Great Brahma and the World Champion, as well as revealing the World Champion's name. And then we will find out what will happen with the Great Brahma after he becomes World Champion.